Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to another episode of The Terror Talks. My name is Jeremy, and I am very pleased to welcome you. I'm glad you decided to join a little bit of your time this evening with us. If you have not seen us before, or you don't follow us and you like what we do, be sure to give us a like on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are on all those social medias. We are constantly posting about all our videos, what we're up to. We are social media junkies over here at The Terror Talk, so be sure to check us out. On today's episode, we are talking about none other than the film that is pretty much sweeping the nation at this point, I would imagine. I don't really have the evidence to support that, but I'm going to say the film that is sweeping the nation, it is The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. This is the third installment of the Conjuring series, and we had the distinct pleasure of viewing that film this very evening. Now, we are going to be giving you the ins, the outs, our thoughts, our post-thoughts, initial thoughts, everything about this movie on this episode today. So, we are not going to waste any time. I'm going to give you one disclaimer. There will more than likely be spoilers in this episode. So if you have not had the privilege to check out this movie yet, be sure to go down to your local cinema and buy you a ticket and see it. And I say go to your local cinema. Don't rent it on Redbox. Don't wait till it hits the streaming services. Don't do any of that. Buy you a ticket. Go to the theater and just sit there and be there for this, because theaters need your help right now. I'm going to give a little PSM. I stand up on my soapbox a little bit here. Movie theaters need your help. The entertainment industry needs your help right now. With the recent pandemic everyone knows what we're talking about here. The recent pandemic left a horrible scar on the entertainment industry, and especially movie theaters. I spoke with someone, very dear friend of mine. Her brother works at a movie theater, and the future looked excruciatingly grim for the movie theaters. Nobody thought they would come back. I'm still on the edge of whether or not they're going to fully come back, because I'm always trying to go catch a movie, and here in my town anyways, the only time I can ever seem to get in the theater is on a weekend. They have not been open on weeknights for a while now, so that leaves me a little weary. So I'm hoping that we can all just attack the theaters in masses and just pack the place, give them a big welcome back. We just had a theater here in town officially opened back up for business very recently. They're part of the Regal Cinema chain, so support Regal, support Georgia Theater Company, support them all. I can't think of all of them right now, but just give them your love, your support. Show them that we enjoy what they do, that we are able to find some entertainment from the sacrifices that they make, which is going to work every day and operating under probably not the greatest conditions, but it's a paycheck, and we're all looking for those these days. And those kids, a lot of times movie theaters are a kid's first job, a teenager's first job, and so we want to support them, we want to help them out. We don't want to ruin that one chance for them to really break into the workforce that way. So be sure to go check out your local cinema, not just for this movie, but for all the movies that are out right now. There's another movie that I'm hoping we'll get to check out next time, and that is A Quiet Place Part 2. I'm very much wanting to go see that one. I was supposed to go see that earlier this week. When I got to the theater, it was too late and I couldn't get in time. But we're going to try and work that in maybe sometime in the week or sometime in the next few weeks, hopefully before it leaves the theater. So, with that being said, let's dive right in on today's episode. So, we are talking about The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It. So, we're going to read you the synopsis of this film. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren take on one of the most sensational cases of their careers after a cop stumbles upon a dazed and bloodied young man walking down the road. Accused of murder The suspect claims demonic possession as his defense, forcing the Warrens into a supernatural inquiry unlike anything they've ever seen before. The movie was released on June 4th, 2021, this year, last week actually. Yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. It came out yesterday. How about that? It was, yesterday from the day I'm recording. It was directed by Michael Chavez, and that's all you really have to know. It has several production companies on it, but yeah, great movie. Stars some wonderful people, some amazing actors that I love. We're really looking forward to this one. So, initial thoughts. Let's just dive right in. So, right now we're going to watch the trailer for this movie. I'm going to let you guys check it out. Watch it. If you're watching the video version, you'll see it. If you're just listening on an audio platform, you will just hear it, unfortunately. But have a listen, have a view. Here's the trailer for The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It.
The court accepts the existence of God every time a witness swears to tell the truth. I think it's about time they accept the existence of the devil.
You okay there? Jesus. I think I hurt someone.
In 1981, Arnie Johnson pled not guilty.
We think this family was cursed.
By reason of demonic possession.
I am not going before a grand jury and saying he was possessed by demons.
Whatever happened that day, that was not Arnie.
Color me your color, darling. Come off your color chart. I know where you're coming from. Coming from. Coming from. Coming from. I know who you are.
Lorraine! Lorraine!
Ed!
You all right?
That was the trailer for The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. I have to tell you, from the first time I saw this trailer, I didn't know what to think after watching it. It was one of those where, you kind of had to, you had to ask yourself a little bit if it was just going to be another one of the same old Conjuring tales that we get every time we turn around, or was it going to be something a little bit different? And I can safely say after viewing it that it was a lot different. A lot different, actually. But yeah, so at a first glance, you see the typical jump scares. You see the suspenseful music, all the stuff that makes a classic horror movie, paranormal flick, however you want to classify this. I call it more of like a paranormal feature myself, but that's just me. That being said, this film takes things in a different direction. It was a direction that I didn't see coming, honestly, until obviously from the get-go I didn't see it going. I never read the description before the movie, and honestly I don't even remember in the trailer hinting at what the synopsis of the film said, which was somebody was using demonic possession as a court case. I also did not realize that this was based on a true story, which when I found that out, that piqued my interest so much, and that got me even more excited, because it's rare you watch movies like this and you can safely say, oh, that's based on a true story. There's evidence, there's recordings, there's this, that, and the other to back this up. In this case, we had that. and it makes a world of difference. So at the beginning of this movie, this is where we're going to break into spoilers now. Spoiler warning. So if you haven't seen the movie, I would stop listening now, because it's not going to be so good for you. You're going to know everything that happens by the end. Then again, maybe you already know the story, you already know what's going to happen, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're not worried about spoilers. So if you don't care, keep on listening. But you have been warned. This is your spoiler warning, your one and only spoiler disclaimer. So here we go, spoilers. So at the beginning of the movie, actually before the movie even starts, the production company did a beautiful job at creating the suspense from the start of it all. So they're showing all the production company logos and all that fun stuff. There's 5 million people who made this movie, come to be, and so because of that, we have to show all their logos, help pay the bills, yada yada yada. Just during those little 30-45 seconds alone, you already know that you are going to be in for some in this movie, because you can feel like the tension is building in the room around you. The music aids with it, the vibe of the audience, you can feel it all. And and that's with any horror film, but with this one especially, it does not hold back any punches, honestly. So from the get-go, you get that. Then the very first scene of this movie, you would expect, you got the family that's moving in, or you would see the ending result of something and then get a flashback. Not this time. This time is different. As soon as the movie starts, we see Ed and Lorraine. They're our main characters in the film, and they're in the middle of a clean house exorcism kind of thing. Exorcism hasn't quite started yet, but they're doing whatever means necessary to cleanse the house and try their best to get whatever this demon is out of the house. That being said, we never start off with something like that. Typically, like I said, you see the family moving in, and everything looks happy, and then something happens immediately. This time they've been working at this one hard. Everyone's wiping sweat from their brows, getting a cup of coffee, water, whatever they need. The tension's up already. Then in the next scene over, we see a priest come there to do an exorcism, and this is where already, you're 5 minutes in, and shit's hitting the fan really fast. It's splattering all over the room at this point. And it's funny, I read a post before. This is what actually intrigued me to go see it today. I wasn't going to. I read a post that made me think, maybe I should go see it. And that post said that this Conjuring pulled back all the punches. And it said that you couldn't touch your popcorn. It said the devil was not even listening to the words of the Bible. This one was intense. And it kind of took all the typical rules of exorcism horror films and just threw them out the window. And so I thought that was very neat. It was a very neat way to do things. I'm sorry if y'all keep hearing things, batting around on the thing. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned, I'm recording on my cell phone right now because we just left the theater. But, so if the sound quality is not fantastic, I apologize. I'm going to try and do what I can in post and try to boost my voice a little bit, try to cut out any air conditioning. I'm driving around in my car right now because why not? We just saw the movie. We want to get our entire review out there immediately. I want to give you guys the initial reaction of this movie. So, we see this possession, and then what baffles me is something I had never seen in one of these movies was you actually saw that this possessed human, the demon, was not leaving. It was not going anywhere. It basically looked at our main characters, it looked at the priest and said, I'm here to stay and I'm gonna make this hell for you. And it was true. All the prayers, holy water, everything, nothing was working. And typically in these movies, you throw some holy water on, you do a couple Our Fathers, and you throw them out. I can make that joke. I'm Catholic, so You know, I believe in the whole exorcism path. I believe in the spirit world, the demons, all that. I do believe that there is an afterlife, and you know that these type of things, hauntings, can happen. Demonic possession, I believe that is possible too. The devil can do things. But that, not to dive too much into my faith background there, but that's just a little disclaimer in case anybody got offended by the Our Father joke and the holy water joke. Now that's something I do believe in very firmly. That being said, none of that stuff was working in this film. And typically in these films, you do that and you're good. This time it didn't work. And that is what really messed with Ed and Lorraine's head. At the very beginning, they're like, we have never dealt with something like this before. And then, to amp it up, take it up a step for me, we saw somebody kind of step in as a hero right there. And so the person who was being possessed at the beginning was nothing but a little boy. And it was the little boy's sister's boyfriend kind of steps in, looks the little boy in the face, who is, skin cracking, veins popping. He's possessed right now. And he looks at the demon and he says, take me instead, take me instead, take me instead. And boom, immediately, you can see the transfer. The boy is let go, and that's it. Then, we see the text that says, this was based on a true story. This was something that we'd never anticipated before. There's all these little things that say that it's true. Everything you're about to watch really happened. And, it was basically like you're watching a documentary in a kind of way. Which I guess, in a way, you are. So, then we don't time jump a bunch. We time jump, the next couple days or so. And this is where things take an unprecedented turn. I saw it coming, but I didn't see it coming. So what ends up happening is the boy who said, hey, take me instead, decided to square up with the demon. I'm sorry. Squared up with the demon, so take me instead. So I'm thinking, this boy, we about to have some battles here today. It is going to get rough. And I knew that from the get-go. I didn't realize what was going to happen. And this boy ends up killing somebody. And, if you've read the description, you already know that he ends up murdering his, landlord or something. The person who's I think it's either his girlfriend's, boss or something of that nature. Anyways, he kills him point blank. And obviously, from an outsider's perspective, if you're watching this in the flesh happening, all you see is a guy stabbing somebody. But then what I love about the Conjuring series is it puts you in the perspective of that person, who is possessed, and shows you what, in that moment, what they're seeing. Now, granted, we don't really know if that's what they were seeing. I mean, I guess there could be hardcore evidence. There could be, interviews with the actual people whom this happened to. The person who was possessed said, hey, this is what I saw. Then, it's a different thing. But, in the case of this movie, they showed us what they saw, what was scaring them, what, put them basically to a point where they had to kill another person. Well, they didn't see that it was another person. They saw this as a demon coming to attack them. So because of that, they stabbed him 22 times to be exact. This comes into play later, which is very interesting. And, yeah. So they stab him, we see that, and you're just like, okay. What's crazy is right after that, next scene we see the guy in prison with Ed and Lorraine again, because, they are very much invested in this. Well, what's so interesting about this is there is no sign of the demon still being present. Odd. When I heard that, I was like, okay, yeah, that's very strange, because like I said, I've seen all these movies before, and I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe it's just one of those things where these linked to the house or something. I don't know. I'm sitting there in the theater. I'm actually kind of pondering. I'm sitting there thinking. I'm coming up with explanations, even though the screenwriters clearly have an explanation for me. I just got to sit there and wait for it. But I have no clue. I didn't know the real story coming into this. So what we soon find out is that he's cursed. And this is where everything you know about the Conjuring series, go ahead, throw it out, because it's not gonna hold true anymore. It's much different. It turns out that this whole movie basically is about, I guess you could call it I don't know if witchcraft is the right word I would use for it. I guess it's kind of more Satan worshiping, kind of, I guess. I don't really know. I don't know what you would classify it as. It's definitely dark, though. I guess we'll call it Satan worshiping. Sure, why not? It's a good blanket statement. So this movie heavily focuses on that, and so what I will say, this is another one of those disclaimers if you've listened this far. If you are sensitive to that whole kind of thing, I don't want to say if you're easily offended, but if that whole concept makes you uncomfortable, then this is probably not the movie for you. Because I can safely say, even sitting there, obviously I don't practice Satan worshiping or anything like that, but just like it made me uncomfortable, seeing the different elements of this. Like, it really kind of fucks with you a little bit. So if you're a little sensitive to that type of thing, or it makes you uncomfortable or anything like that, I would not watch this. If you think you can handle it, it doesn't bother you, and you're just thinking, oh, it's just a movie, go for it, by all means. But for me, I know it did make me very uncomfortable. But, it's one of those things you just kind of, you look past it in the grand scheme of things, and you just hope to God, because it's a true story, it doesn't happen to you. So, if anybody out there is listening, please don't do anything like this to me. So we find out that the whole premise of this is there's a curse. And that's where it really, like, this whole film takes the biggest turn, because, typically, you don't really hear about curses in this type of film. You hear about a typical exorcism, possession, what have you. And that's it. This one, no. You get so much more. And it's so interesting because it's basically, because it is a curse, the possession is kind of being turned off and on throughout the movie. So, like, at the, not the beginning, but kind of the semi-beginning, you see the boyfriend kills the guy. Well, then as soon as he kills him, shuts it off immediately. The possession is gone. I mean, you could tell something's still, like, there with him, but he is not actively, like, possessed in that moment. And so that's the interesting thing about it, is because you get into that realm of, it's almost voodoo in a kind of way. And I hate to call it voodoo because I don't want to misname the facts. Like I said, I don't support it. I don't practice it. I don't believe necessarily in that kind of thing. But I won't say I don't believe in it. I mean, I guess it's clearly something to believe in because it happened. It's a true story right there. But I still don't want to give any false information. I don't believe in that. I want to give everything as factual, concrete as I possibly can. So we find that out, and basically the rest of the movie it goes from possession to almost a murder mystery in a way, because we find out that there's another police case somewhere else linked to this same type of thing that's happening here. And so really, Ed and Lorraine kind of become like these paranormal detectives rather than, investigators into the paranormal. They're like, trying to figure out, like, hey, how do we prove that this guy was possessed? And that becomes the big question of the movie, is what can they do to gather up enough proof to prove in a court of law that the character Arnie was possessed when he killed that man? And that's the big question. That's the one thing we're wondering. And let me tell you, it has you wondering for the rest of the movie, because you're just sitting there on the edge of your seat going, well, what does this lead to? What is this? How does this coincide with that? What is this, and that? So they end up finding out that there is another murder case without a doubt, almost identical to this one in the way it was carried out. In the, I get, for those of you criminal people, you can correct me on this, but on the signature, sort of, everything is identical to a T. Cross the T's, dot the I's. It's mirrored images. We find out there's another girl who killed her friend, stabbed her 22 times, and they found the same sort of it's not an altar, it's a symbol. I don't really know what to call it. The same sort of artifact that was put underneath the house of the little boy who was possessed, and also underneath where the boyfriend Arnie, the main character, was possessed as well. And so this artifact is what cursed them. This is what invited the demon into the house and led to the possession. So there's a link here. So then this is where things get a little crazy. They go on this big whole thing, and we find out, and I may have remembered this from other movies and the other Conjuring movies, and I want to say she does this in all of them. It seemed to slip my mind a little bit. I forgot Lorraine she's a psychic, and so she actually gets the officer who was on the case of the girl who killed her friend. That girl mysteriously disappeared, and so the officer says, "Hey, maybe we can help each other, maybe, or at least maybe you can help me find this missing girl." And Lorraine's like, "Well, if we help you, you got to help us," and basically cuts a deal with him. Says, if I help you find out what happened to this girl with my psychic powers, then, I'm sorry, they're not psychic powers, psychic connection to the spirit world. That's what I should say. I should not call them powers. Powers very much sounds like I'm mocking it. Again, not trying to mock it. I want to be as factually correct as possible. So, he says, if you can use your psychic connection to help us, then we will give you the case files on this girl to see if there's a physical connection between the two cases. So she does just that. She uses her psychic connection and actually, follows an entire path of what this girl did the night she killed her friend. And what ends up happening is, she says she jumped off here. She's at the bottom of this river. She comes to a cliff and says she's at the bottom now. And the officer's kind of like, come on. Like, obviously there's a part of him that's like, come on. Then there's another part of him that's like, he can't doubt it too much because he's just seen something that nobody else could do. Like, she's been right about everything up to this point. She's proved that she does have that psychic connection. So, what ends up happening next, they go down there and they search for the body, and sure enough, the body appears. It's there in the lake, river, pond, I think it was a lake, more or less. And so, this is where things get interesting. So, she helped them. He has to be a man of his word. He says, here's the case file. Good luck. So, that's when things start to take a turn. So, what they discover is that this is when they realize that there's somebody doing this. This is a form of witchcraft or Satan worshiping. And Lorraine realizes that she, in a way, has a connection to the person who's doing this, and she can, in that spirit world, connect to this person. So she and her husband, Ed, go to the morgue where the body of the deceased girl is, and they are able to connect to the lady who is doing this Satan worshiping, if you will. They connect to her, so they see her, they see where she is, but what they don't realize is this works both ways, and so they're actually able, the Satan worshiper sees who they are, and so this kind of throws the monkey wrench in the plan right here, and it actually, from an audience perspective, you're like, oh shit, because this just got real. Because before, you're not typically dealing with somebody who has all this power who can do something else. You're dealing with a spirit who you can use that divine intervention and it goes away. This time you're dealing with a live physical person. And that's what makes this all the more frightening, because you can't necessarily use that divine intervention on that person, or at least not to the same degree as you could an evil spirit. They never really tried to do any divine intervention in this movie. They didn't do any of the crosses or anything like that with the physical person. I don't know if this rain is starting to get picked up on the recording. It actually did just start raining, so that's always fun. So once they realize that this connection goes both ways, that's when they know they're in trouble, because they realize that the Satan person knows who they are. And so what ends up happening is they go back home and they're digging through case files. All of a sudden, everything kind of goes into this weird limbo state. And Ed just flat out faints and he falls down on his bed. And so we can tell, like, the whole thing changes. Like, you can tell something's off about him. He's like walking around his house. Nobody's here. He can't find Lorraine. He can't find anybody. And he finds Lorraine's rosary beads on the floor. And when he sees that, he's like, oh no, something happened to her. When he turns around, he sees the Satan worshiper standing there looking at him and talking to him. And so he actually picks up a knife and like tries to go after her and attack. Well, then all of a sudden something holds him back and the scene kind of dissolves into reality, and we find out that she has now cursed him the same way that she cursed the little boy and she cursed the boyfriend. So there are 3 people who are cursed now. And so this is where things, like, this is the battle right here. At this point you're like sitting there wondering what's going to happen next. Now you get to the final battle. What would typically in most of these movies be the big exorcism scene is actually nothing short of a final showdown. And I love that kind of differentiation from the original stuff that we've seen before. It really makes things different, and I love that. So what happens is where things get fun. They, earlier in the film, visited a retired priest who kind of studied into the occult, into this exact group of Satan worshipers. And in doing so, they know that he knows about who these people are, he knows what they've done. He has information that is valuable to them at this point. So Lorraine, on her own, goes to visit with him because she wants to find out, if there's anything else he knows. She needs help figuring things out. While Ed and one of his little assistants sits at the house while they try to find connections in the case. Well, eventually they come up with the case and find out that the witch or Satan worshiper lives right there in town, like right around where they are. So because of this, they have to go into detective mode and they start eliminating places. What they realize is the Satan worshiper must be very close to where Lorraine is already headed. So that's what, we realize that. The audience goes, and Lorraine's already there. There's no way for Ed to let her know, so he hops in his car and he floors it. He hightails it there. When Lorraine gets there, she's sitting there talking with the retired priest. We've already seen him once before. And there's something slightly off-putting about him. When we first meet him, I thought so. I was like, this guy's a little strange. So I actually, for a minute there, thought, oh no, he's the one who's done it. I didn't think it earlier, but once we got to this point of the film where she went there, I thought he was it. But then I remember, I'm like, well, no, we've seen a female doing this the whole time. Well, then this is where things take a very strange turn. He tells Lorraine he wants to show her something. And what you must understand is down in his basement, he has an entire locked room of, I guess you would call it, evidence of the occult, because he collected these things. He investigated into it. He was curious. So we have the entire occult practically laid out here before our very eyes. And he opens a book and says it's something that no one was ever meant to see. This priest had a daughter before I don't know if it was before he became a priest or what, but he had a daughter who he raised there in that house because he hid her from the world. Well, come to find out, the daughter was paying more attention to the priest's occult items than he thought she was. And so it turns out she is the Satan worshiper, the witch, whatever you want to call her in this case. She is the one who's doing this. And the priest didn't even realize it until now. This is, the audience kind of goes, oh my God, who knew? I didn't even, like, I kind of saw it coming, and then when that reveal happened, I went, oh wow. And so he shows her where her tunnels are, where her altar probably is. And so he sends Lorraine down there while he stays in his room, and it's behind like a hidden passageway kind of thing. So then, what ends up happening is he's sitting at his desk, and he sees his daughter, and I believe he's praying and, saying, Father, forgive me for what I've done, and forgive me for what I've created, basically. But before he can even finish his prayer, his daughter slits his throat and kills him. That's how we know this chick ain't playing. So down in the tombs, this is where things get crazy. So we're down in these catacombs, the tunnel. Lorraine is looking for the altar. She knows what she's looking for because she saw it in the spirit world connection she had before, but she just doesn't know where to look. So she's hunting for it, and then the witch comes down, and she's kind of following behind her, hightailing her the whole time. And then Ed shows up just in time, but then as soon as he gets there, the witch blows this powder in his eyes and basically possesses him. So he starts swinging his mallet that he has around, that he picked up from the barn upstairs. He just starts flying around with that thing, and eventually finds Lorraine down there, and he's like trying to kill her because he doesn't realize it's her. He's possessed too. And what's happening over back at the prison with Arnie, the one who they're trying to prove was possessed, is the possession is starting to happen. So while Ed is over here, trying to basically beat Lorraine to death with a mallet, we see Arnie is over here having this basically overpowering experience, and it's doing some weird stuff, and the wind flies through the entire prison, glass shatters, and he's like levitating up in the air, and the chaplain at the prison there is like, he's doing the whole exorcism stuff, saying the Our Father, all that. He's trying his best, and like nothing's working. And Arnie's girlfriend, who ends up being his wife at the end, is there the whole time by his side, just trying to say, you love me, come back to me, come back to me. Nothing's working. And then same thing's happening with Lorraine and Ed. Lorraine is, trying to tell Ed, you love me, remember me, remember me. She turns you against me, remember who I am. Pretty soon, he remembers, and it breaks. And it's just as he's standing over the altar, the Satan-worshipping altar, and he brings the mallet, or the sledgehammer, I should say, not mallet, sledgehammer, I'm sorry. He brings that thing down, and it cracks that altar in half, and the curse is broken at that point. So Arnie is released from the curse, the little boy is released, and everyone is released from the curse. And then we see the witch standing right there behind them. She looks at them, and she's like ready to fight them. And Ed just kind of looks at her, and like, this is the most badass like kind of thing ever. Like, I was like, oh hell yeah, when he said that. He looks at her and goes, your curse is broken, and says, the devil asked for a soul, and he can't go back to hell without one. So he takes her soul, and you like see her get all cracked up, and then her body just falls on the ground, lifeless. Awesome ending, awesome climax. But it's not over, and I love that it's not over. So everything kind of goes dark, and we appear at the courtroom. And in the courtroom, we see Arnie. He stands for his sentencing. And I think most people probably know what was going to happen here. I mean, clearly something did work, but he stands for sentencing, and we don't hear on screen what the sentencing is. But, obviously him and his lawyer pleaded guilty on counts of demonic possession. And even when that happened, everyone in that courtroom was kind of like, well, this ought to be fun. But what we don't realize is after the sentencing takes place, the screen goes black and we see text appear up on the screen. And it says that Arnie was convicted to 5 years for manslaughter. And then after that, it says him and his girlfriend at the time, now his wife, are married. And then we find out after that they are still married to this day. So clearly something somewhere, either murder or manslaughter penalties were not quite as bad back in the day, or something. I really don't know, to be quite honest with you. But whatever happened, and basically all's well that ends well, somehow or another. I don't really understand how that worked out. I'm still trying to, rattle that one around in my brain, but hey, who am I to argue? So the end of the movie happens, and one of the most wholesome moments in the whole thing happens, and I'm going to get into why this is so wholesome in a moment. What we see is Ed and Lorraine, they're back at their home, and he has built her a kind of, what would you call it? It's like one of those round porch things that you would see in a park. If anybody knows the name of it, comment, please. Help me out here, I don't know. But he builds her one of those. The reason he builds her one of those is because at one point in the story, Lorraine is talking with a priest, and she asks him, did he ever tell you do you know how we met? And he's like, no, I have no idea. And so she tells him the way they met was when they were young children, or young kids. I'm sorry, not young children, young teenagers. Lorraine had gone to the movie theater with her friends, and Ed just happened to be the ticket taker. And so from there, they fell in love at first sight almost, and they went out for ice cream after the movie, and then he took her to the park after that, and it started to rain, and so they stood underneath the little, I don't know what it's called, cabana? Hell, I don't know. But, so that's how they met, and so that's one of the very interesting moments of this movie that you don't really see, is the directors really kind of had, I say directors and the writers really kind of, they helped complement the sinister tone that you get from it the whole time. Most of the time you go see these movies and you're getting into it. With this one, they found a way to basically cancel it out almost. Not cancel it out, it's not the right terminology. To make it a little more lighthearted. And they did that in several ways. You had this beautiful backstory of how Ed and Lorraine met, and I think a lot of people were actually very curious about how that happened. I think that's a question that's been on everybody's minds, and I don't know if that's just, if it was always the plan to reveal it this way, if the writers, said, hey, this might be a good time to, elaborate on their backstory. I don't know. There's no way to know, without knowing the actual writers. We're in the dark, but it's all in good fun. But that's the real story of how they met. And I thought that was a beautiful contrast to what you're getting from most of this movie, which is basically sinister hell on earth. And so they do it that way, and then another way they actually kind of complement the sinister quality of the film is they threw a couple of comedic elements in there, which I'm always a sucker for a good comedic moment, whether even if it's just one of those little, it's so small that it doesn't necessarily, it's not meant to get this gigantic laugh, and yet somehow it does. And so I'm actually perfectly okay with the way they did that. So that was great. And actually, I'll go ahead and tell you one of the ways they did that was they basically, sorry guys, I'm driving in a parking lot here. Basically what they did was they threw in, obviously the whole comedic, or not comedic, but there was this whole strange kind of quality with Lorraine being psychic and having that psychic connection. And so the officer who was there kind of said, okay, you know, we can make this work, but you got to prove it to me first. So he puts out 3 knives. One is from that murder case, and the other 2 are just dummy knives, basically, or they're from other cases that have no relevance. And Lorraine instantly, she grabs that one. She goes, "That's the one. That's the murder weapon." And of course, Ed's over here saying, "No, there's no. You're not going to make my wife into some sideshow trick, or in some sideshow attraction." And Lorraine's just like, "Yeah, no, it's this one. Okay, can we just move on now?" And that it was so funny just because the look was like, "Oh my God, she's right." And then once they got on the road taking her to where the body was, she actually looks at the police driver who's driving the car, and she goes, "Oh, you missed a turn to where the body was." And the police is like, "What?" She's like, "You heard me, you missed a turn." And so it's like, oh my God. So she's never even been to the murder site, and yet she knows that the officer missed a turn. And you could like just kind of hear the laughter amongst the audience members when that happened. It was a very funny moment. But yeah, so The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. That is a movie that I highly recommend. So, scale of 1 to 10, where would I rate that movie? For me, I'm going to say that's probably a solid, somewhere between 8 to 10, I would say. It's definitely up there. You know, I can't really give it a satisfactual, definite number. But for me, it's up there in the top ranks. It belongs up there. It was definitely one of the best paranormal flicks I've had the pleasure of seeing. So be sure to go out and check out this movie as soon as you can. Like I said, see it while it is still in the theaters. It is one you don't want to miss. So before we sign off for today's episode, I just want to remind everybody, you know, if you like what we do, be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Did I say YouTube? Definitely YouTube. I guess if you're on here, you already know YouTube. But still, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, like, comment. Let us know what you thought of this episode. Let us know if you want to hear more about this. This is probably going to be a part of a new series that we're going to start doing, or maybe not a new series, but it's going to be one of those things we're going to start doing to kind of give the channel some variety. Obviously, once we get into October, in September, October, we're going to kind of hit back on the haunted houses. We're going to be doing our haunted house reviews again. We have some great episodes coming up. We've got paranormal investigations. We've got more movie things. Like I said, we're going to try and get out there and see A Quiet Place coming up sometime, maybe in the next week or so. If we don't get to, we'd love to have one of you come on the show and talk to us about it. Maybe you can give us your own account of what you thought of the movie. And that goes for anything. If you have something you'd like to share with us, if you have a paranormal experience, if you have a must-go-to haunted house, if you have anything to share with us, we would love to have you on. If you have experience working in haunted houses, come on, share with us. That's something we'd love to talk to you about. Whatever you've got, shoot us up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. We are on all of them. You can message us privately, or you can just comment and say, "Hey, I've got something I'd like to share," and we will get in contact with you directly. So if you like what we do, be sure to hit the like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. One quick plug, be sure to go check out Tales from the Crypt on Spotify. They are a new podcast that I recently started listening to. They dabble in things paranormal and creepy. They talk about alien abductions, alien sightings, paranormal sightings, dimensional sightings even. Like they do not back away from any punches. So if you're into that type of thing, be sure to give them a check out on Spotify. We would love to, kind of bring them on maybe as a partner in crime for an episode. Maybe we'd do a dual thing. Be sure if you go check them out, drop them a like, comment, subscribe. Let them know that we sent you. Tell them the Terror Talk sent you. And, we'll just kind of keep the ball going between all of us. Special announcement. For this year, we are going to be doing something very, very special. I'm very, very excited about it. this year, October 2021, the Terror Talks team will be visiting Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios Orlando. This will mark their 30th anniversary, and we are most certainly going to attend. This is our first time getting to attend, so we are going to be bringing you coverage on that. We've got some friends over at the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. Check them out. They have a podcast called the Rush of Fear podcast that works in tandem with them, and they are also going to be covering this event. They've got a couple videos out, so be sure to give them a like, comment, subscribe if you're into that type of thing as well. Maybe we can get them on and do a little joint kind of effort with them. But we've got all sorts of fun stuff coming up, guys. We are going to finally try to get back in the swing of things here. I know we've been kind of absent a little while, but we are doing our best to get back on the horse and get you guys content as often as we can. So let us know what you want to see. If you like what we do, rate, comment, subscribe, hit us up, message us, and we will see you guys next time on The Terror Talks. Take care, guys.